everybody. Welcome to another week of Sports and Ish with Misty V and Vince Edwards. This week, we have a very special guest with us, Joshua Bonatol, and I'm going to let Vince tell you all about this amazing guest.
Appreciate it, Misty. Like she said, Josh Bonatol, this is a personal favorite of mine. My guy's been through it all. He's been everywhere. He's opened up famous apps around the world and gotten things going with the Future app. If y'all don't know about that, y'all should definitely go check it out. Me and Josh really kicked it off because he was my trainer at Purdue. He was at Purdue for 7 years. He was there for all 4 years for me. So I was very fortunate enough to have my guy there. He worked with the Bulls. He's done a lot of other things, but I'll let Josh introduce himself and kind of tell us about himself and what he has going for himself nowadays. So, Josh.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you hit on it. You know, I've been a coach now my entire career. I guess that's where my career started, is coaching. And so, you know, honestly, it's moments like this why I got into what, you know, I've done for a couple decades now as a profession in coaching. Just these type of relationships, Vince, that, you know, you and I have, where it's like, I think it's been 5+ years since we were together at Purdue, and, you know, yet we continue to, you know, talk regularly and have a relationship and keep up with one another. But, you know, my background, how it started was I was nowhere near the basketball player that Vince is, although in my head I thought I was. And, you know, I grew up kind of Jordan era, about an hour and a half north of Chicago. So was a diehard Bulls fan. And, you know, basically my whole life, when people ask me, you know, what are you going to do when you grow up? It was always, I'm going to play for the Bulls. And, you know, that was it. And it was just one way or another, I was going to make it there. And, you know, I think fortunately for me, I was at least wise enough to realize, like, you know, maybe I should have a backup plan, like, just in case somehow that doesn't happen. And Vince has seen me play basketball, so he knows there was never a chance that was going to happen. And, you know, that just led me down the path of, like, I loved the process of, you know, pouring everything into becoming a better basketball player. And, you know, the path that led me down was the training side of it and becoming a better athlete, because I thought, you know, that was where for me I could get kind of my edge. And so it was around probably late high school, early college, where I realized that this was a real job. You could go and be a strength and conditioning coach, performance director for an NBA team, a college basketball team. And so that kind of became my new dream of, like, okay, if I don't play for the Bulls, you know, how can I work for the Bulls one day? How can I be the strength coach? And, you know, kind of one opportunity led to the next throughout college, to where my first job out of college was actually with the Bulls. So, you know, I'm 22, and that was quite literally my dream job. And, you know, quick kind of funny story on that. But when I was in third grade, I had a teacher that gave us this time capsule type assignment, like, write a letter to your future self 15 years from now. Like, what will you be doing? And I happened to get that letter in the mail, like, my first week that I had just started with the Bulls. And it was literally one line: I will be the starting point guard for the Chicago Bulls. And so for me, that was my full circle moment. Like, I wasn't running point, but I was there, I was in the team photo. And so, you know, I ended up spending 4 years there, some really good years. My last year was the year Derrick Rose won MVP, and then had an opportunity, got recruited to take over the program for men's basketball at Purdue. And so took that opportunity. And I think it was, what would that have been? I think that was my fourth year, Vince, where that was your freshman year. So we wrote it out together. And so I spent 7 years. In fact, my last season, I made my mind up. I was going to stay one more year solely for Vince and that senior class, because I knew I was ready for something else myself, but those guys collectively had poured so much into us kind of building that program. And I think you see it still, like the remnants, the fingerprints that, guys like Vince, PJ Thompson, Dakota, Isaac Haas, these guys have had on that program. So we kind of rode out together. And at the end of that season, I had an opportunity to kind of take a hard pivot into the Silicon Valley and tech space, and help co-found a technology startup called Future, which we pair you one-to-one with coaches like myself, coaches that come from, having trained professional college Olympic athletes. And it's all, through the app. They're building custom workouts for you. They're checking in with you every single day. So basically building out and scaling what I had done at Purdue with the Bulls, spent the last 5 years building that from basically, 8 of us in a basement to now, several hundred coaches. We raised multiple rounds of funding, over $100 million we raised. And, so Future is kind of well on its way, which has put me in a position to kind of jump into the next thing. And, so now starting to get my feet wet in the venture capital space, and actually the other side of the table, investing into companies and things adjacent to sports. So it's kind of bringing me back into, that world. So sorry, that was long-winded, but stop there.
Nah, it's all good. For people who really don't know Josh, like you said, we had ended up having a great relationship, but little did Josh know, the first day I came in Purdue weights, I hated him. And the reason why that being said was, it wasn't even anything he particularly did. I was a guy that I didn't like being told what to do. And when we came into Purdue, my freshman year, we were on a leash because they were, like you said, we were in a class. I was supposed to come in and help change the program. And Josh knew that. And he knew he had some young guys that they were going to have to rely on. I'm pretty sure all 4 of us played. We came in with another guy named Jaquil, but he ended up redshirting. But all of us played and all of us contributed to that. And the very first day we had 6 a.m. workouts, but we had to be there,
6 a.m. Yes, it was.
5:45. 6 a.m. workouts, 5:45. Everybody had to wear the same thing. Black tank with the Nike Dry Fit cut with your Purdue shorts, and then everybody had to have a white socks or black socks. It didn't matter.
No logo at that point. Yeah,
no logo.
Yep.
So we're literally in here plain Jane names. I'm coming from my high school. So
no music.
No, we had nothing. I'm coming from my high school. I'm like, you know what? I'm cool. I'm walking in here. I know I'm gonna have it was none of that. It was like, we all one heartbeat. And honestly, it made us so much closer down the line. But, me and Josh really connected from there. I really do appreciate Josh. I know I've told him that before, but he doesn't know how much I really do appreciate him, because that really shaped me as a young guy coming in too. And it really put things into perspective of where we were going to go and what we had to do to get there. So
yeah.
My man Josh, he helped us from day one. We followed his lead a little bit, but as we got going, we were able to color outside the lines and finally graduated to music. And all right, now you can wear whatever you want kind of thing, as long as there was Purdue logo. So we had to win. There wasn't really much winning. Purdue was a winning culture in previous times, and it had a couple years where they were down. So it got strict. But Josh actually though was really good with us, man. That's, anybody don't know, self-proclaimed athlete of the year every time. Every time we do anything though, but not too many people can go to their trainers and talk to their trainer and just kind of hey man, and get NBA insight, professional insight. He has so many stories and so much helpful tips. He's been to where you wanted to go if you're a guy coming in trying to learn. So Josh, man, I appreciate you. I know a lot of people don't know, but my man Josh is self-proclaimed. Honestly, not even self-proclaimed. Best dressed strength coach ever. Dude wears some of the
I had to teach him a little bit more than just training. I had to, the style on the bench, all that. So
I and Josh still to this day, people I know has got a top 5 style. But Josh, talk to people about how that kind of came about, because that's just something you did. So what was going into that when when you just put all these outfits together and things in that nature?
Oh, with the outfits? Oh, I thought we
with
were
the
going to go back to what you walked into with last place.
We can touch on
we'll
that
get there too. We'll get there. Now with the style, I mean, being a 22-year-old and my first sort of foray into the professional world as an adult is with NBA players. And, so you're traveling everywhere together and going out to dinner, and you're staying at the nicest hotel in every city. And even just like, and back then it wasn't quite as much of a like kind of show as it is now, like guys walking into the tunnel, but still like they were, very well put together. Like I'm dating myself, but when I was in the league was like 06 to 11. So like you didn't have Instagram and all this sort of stuff back then where it was, checking everybody's fits. But at the same time, it was, every time if we traveled, you kind of had to come correct on the plane, or especially in that environment with, all these pros, all these millionaires, you're going to get roasted. And so I had to probably learn back then, because I didn't have their budget. But how could I put together some nice pieces? Because if I didn't, I wouldn't hear the end of it from them. But then you also you kind of taking notes on, what they're wearing. And it's interesting because, I think probably sport in general, but especially basketball, like fashion is such a huge part of the culture, and like guys are talking about it. They're interested in it. They're up on the latest trends. And
I think even just and all that stuff too.
And the whole range from they can throw the 3-piece suit on to, something more casual, but it's still put together to a T, every accessory, and all of that. And, I think part of it for me probably even started from how can I just be the best coach in the world? And ultimately what coaching, to be effective as a coach, is all about relationships. That's the foundation of it all. It does not matter what I know from kind of an X's and O's perspective if I don't first have a relationship with each and every player and each and every person that I'm working with. And in order to do that, you have to find ways in which you can form connections with that person. I talk about it's forming a tribe. It's things that identify the two of us, like in this case, me and Vince, as being us, as being a part of the same tribe, as opposed to being them. And the way in which you do that is one of the things I always talk about is kind of turning over rocks to collect dots and then connect those dots. And so the turning over rocks is getting curious about this other person, and just observing them too, but asking questions, understanding what and who is important to them. What are they talking about? And so, going back to even the style thing, I think I realized very early on, a lot of our players, that's just what they were talking about amongst themselves. So I realized if I want to connect with them, if I want to be effective as a coach, I have to really get up to speed on some of this stuff with the style, the shoe game, the music, all these sorts of things. And especially at that time, I'm the same age as most of my players, several of them are actually older than me. But just kind of taking that interest and then showing up with some fits where it's I put it together clearly because I learned from them. I think it was those are the types of things that really start to form that bond and form that connection that much more, that kind of make us a tribe, to where now when I have to do my job as a coach and and maybe I'm directing a program for what that player is doing in the weight room or whatever it is, there's a foundation of a relationship, there's a foundation of trust, there's a connection. that especially comes in handy in the moments that, because sport, it becomes a family. Like Vince, to me, to this day, this is my brother. Like this is my family, and same going back to my NBA guys. Well, and I'm an only child otherwise, but if you have brothers and sisters, especially if you're close, you probably fight a lot, and so having that connection and being in that space, it's inevitable. You're going to have moments, and it might be even weeks at a time, where you hate each other, you can't stand each other, or you don't want to hear it from this other person. And so having those deeper rooted connections, showing that you have an interest, shared interest, it allows you, I think, in those moments to have those, otherwise difficult conversations, and be received. But yeah, so, from the fit game, I think that's where it came from. And especially going from the NBA to college, I felt like there's a certain perception probably people have about me because I was in the NBA, and so I got to come with a certain type of swag for my players now at Purdue, to have that respect factor for me.
That he did. So I know we've been all over. Oh, go ahead, Misty.
I feel like when this gets released tomorrow, we're going to have you send some photos over. We can share them.
I know.
Got some for sure. He definitely got them. I feel like we jumped all over a little bit, Josh, but kind of take us back to that moment where you had these 5 freshmen walk in, and we were kind of in that space where it was like, what are we going to do? Like, just take us back, because I know from my perspective, it's totally different from your perspective. Like, I don't know what I got myself into. I just know I'm coming to try to contribute, but I didn't know what it takes. And I know you see me and you was like, man, I don't know about this kid right here, because he's like, he's not like, it wasn't even that I was like not perceptive to coaching or anything. It was just like, man, I'm just kind of trying to do it my way, but I didn't realize it first, and all of us young guys. So just kind of take us back to your perception and perspective of that and how it ended up molding and shaping out for all of us.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think the one thing, especially from your perspective at that time, I think this now, but back then you didn't know this, nor would you or should you, is especially at that college level. And I think it kind of happens again at the NBA level to an extent, but especially at the college level, think about it. All 5 of you, not only were you the best player on your respective high school team, you were the best player in your conference. You were probably the best player in your state. If you weren't, you were like top 5,
right.
And every single teammate you have was that. And especially coming into a program like Purdue, perennial top 25 program, competing for Big Ten titles year after year. You're also playing with other guys who have aspirations of going to the NBA or playing professionally and are going to do that. And so, the thing about it is, as a freshman coming in, you inevitably are having to level up, but you don't know what that means yet. You don't know what it looks like yet. You haven't seen it, and so from my perspective as a coach at the college level, I always felt like the kind of greatest sort of gift and also sort of responsibility that I had with our players was to help them see what it actually looks like and what it takes. Like, if you're telling me you want to go to the NBA, then right away my mind goes to, okay, we're going to make this happen, but here are the steps and here's what it's going to take. And so, I think what you're describing from your perspective is you come in and right away you're working harder than you ever have in your life. And so there's a natural belief that, like, I'm working really hard because I'm working harder than I ever have. And like, especially if I, as a coach, am demanding more of you, or Coach Painter or whoever it is, you reach your breaking point at times. But, I think a lot of times as you're still figuring it out, what you don't realize is, yes, that's true. You're working harder than you ever have in your life. but there's still a gap between how hard you're working and or even like what you're working on, where you're spending your time, and where you need to be working if you want that dream to be a reality of, you know, playing professional basketball. And now fast forward, Vince, like you have mentors like Chris Paul and Carmelo Anthony, and you've been around it, you've seen it, you've been through the training camp. So like, you know, I think looking back, like now, you know,
Right.
but you know, I think that's one of the first things is just like, how do you set that tone, and, you know, establish these new standards. So I think that was probably one, is just helping you and helping you guys collectively get there. But then, you know, you guys were fortunate and unfortunate in the timing of when you joined Purdue basketball program, because Misty, the season before they all came on board, we finished in last place in the Big Ten. And Vince, I don't know if that's ever happened in like Purdue history. Like, I don't know, maybe one other time.
Maybe,
like that doesn't happen. Like Purdue either like wins the Big Ten or we're like a game or two away from winning the Big Ten. And the year before that, we didn't make the tournament. So we're coming off 2 years in a row where we didn't make the tournament. My first year was the only year I'd been to the tournament, but that was also, you know, that was the last year where it was Robbie Hummel was a fifth year, Lewis Jackson was a senior, Ryan Smith was a senior, you know, DJ Bird was a junior. So you had the holdovers from like kind of the initial group that turned Purdue basketball around, like the E'Twaun Moore, Juwan Johnson, Robbie Hummel. And then my second and third year, those 2 years before Vince, you came on board, those guys were gone. And there was a void in, you know, kind of having the right leadership, the right voices, because I think we went through a period where like the guys we still had, they were great guys, but they hadn't been through like the dark parts necessarily. They'd been with Purdue in the good years. And this was also at the time when we just got a brand new, I don't know, $50, $100 million facility, practice court, brand new weight room, brand new locker room.
Shout out to Brian Cardinal for that, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, the reality was it was the guys that came before them who were responsible for that, who had earned it, even though they didn't get to experience it. And now it was this group and it was our group that got all those benefits and all the gear. And so what Vince and you know, those five freshmen walked into was, you know, we kind of had a bit of an entitlement culture at that point. But we hadn't earned the right. And I mean, frankly, I don't think you ever should have that mindset if you're going to go and compete for championships that you're entitled, because you're probably going to get a wake up call really quick. And so, you know, when Vince is describing at the beginning, like we in our workouts in the summer, we didn't wear the Purdue logo on anything. It was just black and gold. We didn't have music, or if another team was in the weight room, it was whatever music they wanted on. So we'd have our, you know, women's tennis was lifting at the same time. You remember this, Vince? They'd have like some techno music that none of y'all would have rather had no music. You know, it was like we clean up the whole weight room, whether we use that or not. You know, it was because it was this mindset of like, we first have to start from a place of appreciating everything that's been given to us without us actually earning it, you know, and we had to kind of earn the right again to have these things, to like kind of earn that P again, but realize that it's special. It's special to be here. And, you know, I think my mindset even then was with you guys, Vince, was you guys were the ones that were then going to carry it. And so at that time, again, you guys didn't know what it looked like yet. So you had to be kind of shown and taught what it needs to look like. So that first year, was a lot of hand holding, a lot of like dictatorship, so to speak.
Yeah,
but along the way, I think at least for me and the rest of our team around, we were trying to educate you and trying to empower you in ways and trying to get you to, to have a voice. And as you demonstrated, like, building the right habits and understanding what it looked like, I think, as the years went by, that's where, your last 2 years, I might as well have not even been there. Like, you guys ran the whole thing, Right. And so it's funny because if people only saw that, they think, oh man, this is just like, like players are just running everything. But it was like, you guys had to earn that. And you did. And then I think we had our greatest success, especially in those last 2 years, because now it wasn't my team or my culture. It wasn't Paint's team or Paint's culture. It was you guys, and you guys defined what it was. And you guys led, and you guys, if there was any conflict internally, you guys resolved that. And I think that's what allowed, us and you guys to be so special. And then like people like me just got to piggyback off of everything you guys do to kind of launch my career in different ways. So
yeah, people don't even know that we, like you said, Misty, unfortunately, we came into the wrong time. So Josh is going to lead us out. I'm never leaving this story out because we earned this. Because ultimately, our junior year, we went on to win the Big Ten championship. So ultimately, like, that was a goal of ours that we had set. But that freshman year, we walked into Navy SEAL training. I'll never forget it for as long as I live. We got white T-shirts with our last names on the front. They went out and bought us all camo pants, and we're all wearing our training shoes. Our clothes didn't get washed. I just got hung up and dry, wet clothes. They'd just be dry. Ew. So we would have this. Paint new guys would like to go out, party. It's college. It's the guys that have this. Paint new guys like to go out, party, do whatever. So we had the weekend where it was like all these big parties are going on. Paint like, no, this is what we got. Brought in 2 ex-Navy SEAL guys who, after everything was over, was really cool once you talked to them. But during that moment, nobody liked them. We had to stay down in the locker room.
Y'all had like 3 a.m. wake-up calls.
Yeah, we were staying down in the locker room. They were taking our cell phones after about 9 o'clock. And it's just so funny because they were recording all this. But the first time we woke up was about 3:49, I want to believe. I honestly believe like it was yesterday. It was like 3:49 in the morning. They're coming in with flashlights, whistles, horns, bells. We're running up, jumping up. You can't leave your partner. Everybody had a partner. You leave your partner, everybody gets punished. So one day, and it taught us team chemistry and camaraderie as a team, which was what we needed. But because we had 5 new freshmen, 5 new guys who were going to play. And so we never played with these guys before. We had to get acclimated with the team quickly. So, one day we're carrying each other up hills. We had these big fat tree logs that we would put on our shoulders. There's like 4 guys to each one. And we're all running across campus, people laughing at us. We're irritated, upset, whatever you want to call it. We're diving through the sand pits at the co-reg and volleyball, crawling through mud. We're jumping in the pool. We're swimming with each other on each other's back. Like, it was probably the craziest thing ever. But when you go back and look at it, like we talked about a little bit, like that's where our success came from. And those are the behind the scenes things that people didn't realize. And kind of like Josh broke down when he said, we got to enjoy the facilities and everything. Well, these guys, as of late, got to enjoy what it felt like to be number 1 in the country. Like, we never got that feeling. We never got to get to these other bigger tournaments like we all wish for. So everybody's fruits and labors didn't necessarily go to them straight away. It went to what was behind. So the fact that we were able to help leave that legacy behind, and it's still, the train's still going in the right direction, I think that's the fruits and labors for us.
Well, and I think, and to be clear, that was the word that we used was legacy. Even, even from you guys freshman year, I still remember, Vince, like your first or second week on campus that summer. And I think it was you and Dakota sitting there, and already I was having conversations with the both of you about how quickly you guys needed to step up and take positions of leadership. And, and we were big on, like, if we have 15 guys, all 15 guys should be leaders. Like, because we're going to need to call on everyone at different times, because also too, with the dynamics of a team of that size, there's moments where it might even be like one of our juniors, they're not going to listen to me, they're not going to listen to Paint, but Vince as a freshman is who actually has the closest relationship with this guy. So maybe he also, like, you also know something's going on with this person. Mm-hmm. So you know how to deliver the message. And so maybe, we go through you, but, I think we and I in particular put a lot on you guys early, and I demanded a lot of you guys. But the thing that we always talked about was that legacy of like not allowing that to happen again, where like, another group comes to Purdue and there's that void where entitlement, creeps in. And the story that like I am so proud of you guys for, and I'll like, I will never forget this moment in my life, is y'all's senior year. So Misty, we had won 19 games in a row, which was the longest winning streak in the history of Purdue basketball. We were number 3 in the country. We were probably the best team in the country. It was, obviously we're both biased, Vince, but it was us in Villanova. And it was us in Villanova, and it was everybody else. And we went through a bit of a bumpy stretch where we lost 3 games in a row. Two of them, I mean, like buzzer beater tip-ins, like overtime buzzer beater, crazy shots. And then the third one was it was bad. We lost to a really bad Wisconsin team. And so there was this kind of air around the program and probably West Lafayette and social media, this buzz of, like the sky is falling, we're falling apart, because we're, I think, maybe 2 games away from Big Ten tournament and then the postseason, where we're like, we have the team to win a championship this year. And there were things that Vince, the four of you guys, you, PJ, Isaac, and Dakota, saw. Like, you had the awareness of what was working when we won 19 in a row and what we had gotten away from in those 3 games that, even I think collectively us as a staff didn't necessarily see, and so I think the 4 of you, it was like, so we had a meeting in my office. It was our 4 seniors, myself, and Joey Brooks, who was our graduate assistant at the time. And we just talked about, what were the things that needed to get corrected, and how the 4 of you could have a conversation with Coach Painter to help one another figure out how we, put the team in the best position going into the postseason. And I'll never forget, we were in there for like 2 hours. You guys, I remember Isaac had a little yellow legal pad because he was writing down notes for like the next day, how you guys were going to meet with Coach Painter, which, by the way, that's intimidating. Coach Painter is one of, if not the best coach in all of college basketball. And
especially when it comes to smarts.
Yes, one of the smartest, maybe the
a
smartest
basketball
coach
dictionary. You can ask him any sports question. Mm-hmm. He knows it on the spot. It might take him 2 seconds to think about it, but his mind is crazy. The answers and everything he knew. Scores. And
so you got to think, like, the 4 of you, he'd been coaching the game of basketball longer than the 4 of you had been alive. So how are you going to approach him and present to him, hey, we see some things that we've changed that we need to get back to, and have it be an open, receptive conversation. And so anyways, I remember we talked about all that. And then at one point, you guys collectively were like, well, yeah, but what about next year? What about when we're gone? Who's going to be able to step up and help Carson Edwards' development from sophomore to junior year? What about Ryan Klein and Grady? How are we going to make sure that they step into this as leaders? And like, I literally got chills. I was sitting back listening to you guys, and it was just like, that moment was, I think, the culmination of, everything that you guys worked to build and worked for. it was amazing because you think like, especially at the level each one of you were playing individually and all you had in front of you, but us collectively as a team, we could win a national championship. We do that. Guys get drafted, all of this.
Yeah, right.
And that wasn't the most important thing to each of you. Like it was, and I think we all knew like, okay, we do what we're going to do. Like that's a byproduct. But the most important thing to each one of you was it was bigger than any one of you. And it was carrying the legacy forward. And one of the things we always talked about, Misty, was how do we leave the jersey in a better place? So when we came in, here's where the program is, to 4 years later, you know, when we leave, that it's in a better place and it's in a spot to even go on and get better. And again, unfortunately, because Isaac gets hurt in the tournament. Who knows what happens there? But the year after we all left, that's the team that went to the Elite Eight and, you know, was a 1/10 of a second away from Final Four and, you know, who knows, probably a national championship. And that does not happen without you, Vince, Dakota, Isaac, you know, PJ, Jaquil. Like you guys' imprints is all over that. And I mean, it's just, it's special at the college level. Like you don't, there's not many athletes that have that kind of, you know, awareness and just perspective at that stage to make it bigger than themselves.
Yeah, that was definitely special. We're going to switch gears and switch topics a little bit. We've been on here recapping what's been going on in the NBA playoffs. Obviously, you know, that's big. I know you stated you've been in basketball, so we already know what you're about. What are your opinions on the playoffs so far? Do you think the Celtics have a chance to make this a series? Do you think it's over? What do you have going on? Because Misty's a Celtics fan, so be careful. So
you are?
That might be a touchy subject for her a little bit. So she's still
I have some really close friends in the organization, so you know I'm definitely rooting for them. I think there's a lot of things that they do behind the scenes that kind of sets a standard in basketball. Like there's a lot of things I've really learned from, you know, how they operate as an organization. I haven't been able to trust them this playoffs. I went into the playoffs with the mindset of like, okay, whoever wins between the Bucks and the Celtics, probably going to take the championship. And then, you know, obviously the Bucks, we all know what happened with them, but like the Celtics have just been too up and down to me. And I don't know what you see, Vince, but like, especially in that Philadelphia series, it just seemed like there was something off. Like, you know, it was like, but then they had a moment there where like, I was convinced they were losing game 6. I watched the post-game press conferences after game 5 and just like the vibes the guys had collectively, it just kind of seemed like, you know, they're probably checked out. And you saw it in that game, but they had a moment where it was like everyone rallied around Tatum so much. And then he came back, hit them 4 threes in the fourth quarter. And it seemed like that, like, reunited them in some way, like re-energized them. And then you saw it in game 7, they come out Tatum with the 50 piece. And so I was like, okay, the Celtics are back. And then the first 3 games of the Heat series. So I don't know. I think they get it tonight, but you giving Jimmy Butler a closeout game at home to go to the finals. I just think Jimmy Butler is having one of those postseasons like we've seen from, say, like Paul Pierce back in the day. Like Paul Pierce had that one year where he was probably the best player on the planet, you know, and they won the championship that year, and that's what it kind of feels like Jimmy's doing right now on his side. Although Jokic on the other side is kind of doing his own version of it. So
yeah, he definitely is.
I hate to say it, Misty, but I think Miami in 6.
Oh, so wait, you think there's going to be a game six? Because I could get down to Miami by Saturday. Wait, you
I
think?
thought you canceled.
Hey,
I thought you canceled the ticket
I
already.
did. I canceled the flight. I canceled the flight. I've got a very good colleague that works for the Heat, so I get a ticket, right? But I
Okay.
canceled my
Yeah.
flight. I canceled my flight thinking, well, this is over. It's over.
Yeah. I mean, that might be a good call because if just
Like
to
the
trust the
universe,
Celtics right now is too much.
the universe can hear you right now. I just want you to know. The universe can hear you right
Yeah.
now.
What you think, Vince?
I'm not sure. Like you said, there's been a lot of up and down. I think with them personally, they had some things going on where it was just kind of rocky for them, kind of choppy, up and down. And like you said, in that game six where Tatum, was struggling and he hit those, 4 threes and it kind of sparked them back into it. It was just then you turn around, had the greatest game seven, most points scored in the game seven ever. So I think, like you said, the first 3 games caught a lot of people by surprise because it seemed like the energy was just taken away from them. I don't know if it was because of the last series or whatever, but no, at this time of the year, there's no excuse. Like you either got to come to produce or you don't. And if you don't, then you go home. So I think them being professionals, even though they got down 0-3, they looked at each other kind of in the eyes like, we're not going out like this. Like, hey, if we're doing anything, we're going out swinging. You know how it feels to be a competitor and be in that standpoint. So I think that would have been embarrassing for them, and they didn't want to be embarrassed, like Jaylen Brown was saying. So, and they all said in their press conference, in their interview, like, don't let us get one. And, they spoke that before the game. So I think they took that energy and carried it into that. So I think they can – I said Celtics in 7 originally. So I'm not saying Jimmy can't get it done in the game 6, but I'm gonna stick with my prediction. So I'm gonna stick with it.
They're the most talented team by far.
Yeah, for sure.
They have all the pieces, and I think you hit on it. Is that belief piece? And it's like, and it all starts speak it into existence. I mean, that's one of the things you and we talked about all the time at Purdue. It's like, before you can ever do it, especially like something like this, no team's ever come back from down 3-0. Before you can ever achieve it, before you can ever do it, you have to believe it, And so to your point, if they're already, they're saying it and they're believing it going in, don't let us get one. And now they got it. Now that, that belief starts to cascade. So, but so from your perspective, because you've been in those moments like Jason Tatum, went through, especially in that game 6, where like the weight of it's on him, you're struggling like that. I mean, it looked like he got to a moment where he wasn't even engaged in the game, but like his teammates were still picking him up. Like, what is that like from the player perspective? Like, how have you experienced or dealt with that?
I think it just gets frustrating because it seems like everything that could go wrong for you, and especially for the team, is going wrong. So I think in that moment, it's just trying to see one go in, because at that point, it's very deflating. And I believe, like, if he doesn't get that next shot, that next 3-pointer that he hits, I think that's a whole different series. And, I think Philly does close it out. But I think, like you said, it was the teammates believing in him, and like they say at that level, this is what you're paid to be this person for us. So if we're gonna ride it out on anybody's shoulders, we're gonna ride it out on who they consider the face of the franchise, and that's who he is. And he showed why he is that guy, and he showed why he's one of the future faces of the NBA, and he's gonna be around for a long time, as we all know. So I just think, from a personal standpoint, that's just what it was. It was like, we're going to ride it out with you, whether you go, 0 for 30 tonight or 1 for, 20, like, we're going to ride it out. So I think for him, once he saw that shot go in, and if they were like, all right, we're coming back to you, you can see his body language. Like, he was like, oh, I'm going to take this shot. But once it went in, you could see his body language, like, uh-oh. And then he started, licking his chops a little bit. And that second one went in, and he was like, okay. When he got the third one and the fourth one, it was like, it was over with. So once he found that groove, he found his rhythm.
How that little shimmy came back.
Yeah. So I think personally, from a player's perspective, that's just kind of how it is, because you just start thinking about the most, or what you can even do to help the team win. And sometimes it's your job to help the team win is to score the ball. So that's how it goes from that standpoint, my perspective.
So they get by. So if Celtics win in 7, they get by Denver.
I'm excited to see that series. I ain't gonna lie. I feel like even the Heat in Denver would be good too. So I don't know. Yeah. I think I favor Denver a lot because of Jokic. Like if it's a problem for AD, you know it's a problem for Bam. Mm-hmm. And if it's a problem for Bam, like you know it's gonna be a problem for Horford or like Rob Williams is young. So Rob Williams being young, it can help a little bit, but at the same time, like Joker is Joker. Like it's gonna be tough. So I don't know, man. I feel like Denver finally has gotten there, and I feel like it could be their year, but it's hard to bet against. If the Heat win, it's hard to bet against Jimmy Butler right now.
But well, Jimmy Butler and Spoelstra, you know,
Spoelstra for sure.
Spoelstra has been there before, and I think that's the thing you're seeing even in this series is just, you know, the different adjustments and the way, and you know, Micah does this big time. Shrewsbury, how he just hunts out matchups, you know, and especially with Jimmy, putting Jimmy in a position. Okay, we're going to get the right matchup, and you know, just Jimmy's going to go to work. And at least the teams that they've faced haven't really done that back to them near as much. So
yeah, I think it's battle of the role players, especially if it's Heat in Denver. It's going to be battle, you know, Martin, Vincent, and you know their guys have been going Shrews. You know, Duncan's came in, gave great minutes. Versus, you know, you got Bruce Brown. And those guys, KCP, everybody who's been around that's been balling for them. So I think it depends on whose role players come to play. And right now, Miami's got the best. Denver's is well slept on. But I want to shift this conversation a little bit because you know me. I'm an Ohio guy. I'm a Bron guy. Chicago, you're a Jordan guy. I'm hurt. My feelings are hurt. So this is our first podcast doing since LA got swept. So how do you feel? What do you think this does with LeBron's legacy? Because that's a question that has to be had. And also there is some rumors floating around out there too. But first, like, what would you say, or if you're LeBron, how do you, or if you're even Rob Pelinka, like, how do you go about structuring this team, or do you keep the team? Do you move pieces? Like, how do you go about making it a better fit for these guys going into the next season? Because, I mean, they made great moves at the trade deadline, and that's why they ended up in the Western Conference Finals. So compared to where they were started, they were never supposed to be where they were. Starting at 2-7, and then you ended up as the 7th seed and end up in the Western Conference, I think was great by them. But obviously to them, they feel short. So just kind of go about that and how you think they can structure for a better team next year.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because, and you know this, it's always, if ever you fall short of the goal, is what do we need to change? What do we need to do different? And sometimes, honestly, it's just, you know, maybe it's the way the ball bounces. It's a call here or there, or you know, whatever it is. I think in their case, it's like they were only really just starting to come together as a team. You think like the number of games that they actually, not just that they were together, but they were actually like on the court together, and like the different lineups and stuff like that. And so, I mean, it seemed like they were about to really be a problem. So, I mean, you know, there's an element from my standpoint of, hey, whatever it takes, obviously, to get LeBron back. You know, if there's certain pieces there that maybe are missing, that you know, offload some of his responsibilities or augment some of what he does. But I don't think you need to make, you know, too many personnel changes personally from what I saw. I mean, that was a championship team. And, you know, I think that's the thing about it. And, you know, I mean, shoot, Vince, we just got done talking about this with us and Villanova our last year. We had a championship team. We just, at the end, we didn't get it done. Whereas, you know, like the Warriors this year, I think when you watch, and it kind of pained me too, because I've been, you know, kind of pulling for the Warriors this last like decade or so. But when you watched them, you realize, like, and Steve Kerr even said it, it wasn't a championship team. They need some new pieces, but the Lakers to me look like, a championship team. And I mean, as far as LeBron's legacy, I mean, that's cemented. Now, if we want to get into the GOAT debate, I'm still like, it's always going to be MJ. For me.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
But I mean, obviously you can't take anything away from everything he's done and everything that he's doing and the level at which he's competing and going out night in, night out. But I mean, shoot, how it is, Vince, as a player, like those seasons start to wear on you. Like, so, I think it's good right now. He's taking that time to kind of clear his head, get away from the game and figure out what he wants to do. And, don't forget MJ came back a couple times. So
he did.
Maybe he takes some time. I've heard the rumors of, he takes a year and comes back with Bronny. That wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me either, but like you said, it's funny that you said go to stay new pieces because I seen something in the media and I don't know. It's kind of crazy because we were talking about it earlier. They're talking about a possibility of the Warriors wanting to trade for LeBron. So
what?
In the trade,
really?
In the trade, it would be what I saw was the first one was Kuminga, Poole, and Moody for LeBron. And then the next one I saw, and obviously like some picks. And then the next one I saw was Kuminga, Poole, and Wiggins for LeBron. And I don't know how I feel about it, but I feel like if something like that was to happen, I feel like LeBron might be the first player ever to have his jersey retired in 4 different arenas.
Wow.
Just personal opinion of mine because I don't know what you could possibly do if LeBron James is now facilitating to 2 of the greatest shooters. Already Steph Curry's already solidified, and then Klay Thompson's obviously they're the Splash Brothers, and you have a mastermind basketball LeBron, and Draymond's still there, and you keep Kevon Looney, who's reliable.
And then you taking those defensive responsibilities off of LeBron because Draymond's going to do that, and then LeBron maybe in moments will do it. So I mean, in a way, it probably extends his career that much more.
It might. Then you keep my guy GP Gary Payton II coming off the bench. That's it. So I think I don't know. I was talking with my brother and my dad. My dad was not feeling it, but my dad's a Jordan guy, so I think that puts a little pressure on him.
I've always liked your dad. Your dad's a smart guy.
Man, it's just y'all's era, man. I understand. I get it. It's definitely y'all's era, but no, personally, I feel like for the Lakers, like, what does that do? I think AD then, gets out, but I also don't think LeBron leaves AD. You know what I'm saying? I think it's one of those moments. Obviously, fans are talking about trading LeBron, but it's like, do you really trade this guy at this point?
Right.
Then it becomes a rebuild because it's like it's nothing against AD, but it's been up and down. Sometimes he's hurt, sometimes he's not. Then you're just left. Then you're left with just Kuminga. There's some young guys on the roster at that point. You still got Reeves who been playing exceptionally well. You got Rui. You still got, guys like that. And everybody else is on contracts. So I don't know who comes back after that. But those 2 are restricted free agents. So I think, personally, it might be – obviously, it's a great move for Golden State because they're in the business of winning now.
It's a great move for LeBron.
It's a great –
I think if you go there, now all of a sudden you're talking about – another dynasty for the Warriors. They probably win it the next, 3-4 years, so long as he doesn't want to go and join Bronny whenever Bronny comes to the league.
Listen, I say Bronny goes one and done. They take him in the second round, get Bronny to go to state. Bronny's catch and shoot. His catch and shoot is, I think he's got one of the best catch and shoots I've seen from his class. Dude's a dead eye. And I know that's been like the difference between him and his dad. Like obviously, like Bron's streaky, he got better as his career went on. But Bronny, man, I went to go watch him in Las Vegas my second year. I think I was in Oklahoma City in the G League, and they were playing in Vegas around the same time we were at the showcase for the G League showcase. And he was only a freshman, but at that time, he obviously didn't hit the growth spurt. He wasn't dunking or none of that. But obviously like his dad, he's making the right reads. He's playing with poise as a freshman. No, he had the float. That was his shot as a freshman, the high float. Kind of like I used to shoot a lot my freshman year at Purdue, like, and that was his go-to. And then that's what he did. He made shots, he made the right plays, and people didn't kind of see it. But like you can just, if you're really a student of the game of basketball, you can kind of just see, like, even if he doesn't amount to the greatness of his dad, because that's huge shoes to fill, it's like he's going to be a great basketball player regardless, because he already had the IQ, the feel for the game. Like, obviously it was natural. It helps when you can get the top of the class trainers, you know, recovery for your body, everything, because we all know how Bron take care of his body. So I like Bronny. I think he'll be really good too in the NBA. Obviously, is he going to be his dad? That's up for debates, but I think he'll have a solid career, in my personal opinion. But it depends on the expectation that, you know, the basketball world wants to put on him. So
right, exactly. Yeah, no. If you, to your point, if you just judge him as his own player, I agree with you. He's going to be successful. There's going to be those people out there that always, you know, nothing's going to be good enough because they're going to judge him in the footsteps of his, or the shadow of his dad, which is tough. But you know, I think
they shouldn't. Yeah,
I agree. And I mean, it's impressive to see just how he's handled it to this point. You know, both him and Bryce. I think even just getting to this point is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think too. Like, I think maybe he did have a little bit of an advantage, right? Because he did grow up learning how to be an athlete 365 days a year, right? A lot of kids don't have that opportunity to know what it looks like to be disciplined all the time. That you can't just come home and do maybe what your friends are doing. If this is something you're serious about, you now have a dad that has showed you what that lifestyle looks like. So you understand what it is you're supposed to do to get to that level. So, but you can't take anything away from him because he still worked for it. Every bit of it. He was still disciplined enough to get there. So you can't take that discipline away.
I think that's a difference for him between like a lot of the kids that, you know, these famous NBA players or whatever NFL, whatever athlete they were with their kids is, he took the blueprint and he worked for it. And he kept working. And I think that's why I'm even more of a fan of him, because it's easy to just be like, my dad's LeBron. Or you hear, like LeBron said in an interview, you know, I could call whatever school in the country that Bronny can get in. Like, yeah, that might be the case. But also these teams would take Bronny because they've seen his progress and how hard he worked. Like, you could tell from his freshman to his senior year, he had a growth spurt, but you could tell he worked on his game. So I think that's what makes me a fan of him even more. It's just a simple fact that, like, my dad might be LeBron, but I'm Bronny and I'm trying to make a name for myself. So that in itself right there it speaks volume of who he is and his character as, you know, as a person, as a young man, and as a basketball player as well.
Well, I think, you know, and there's an expectation of how he carries himself, because, you know, I think that's one of the things that's probably, you know, overshadowed the most about LeBron, because LeBron's a very polarizing player. We all know that. Is you either love him or you hate him. There's not people that toe the line. It's, you know, it's one or the other. But I think even if you hate him, like from the standpoint of, you know, like you probably are a fan of the teams that he's competing against and beating, or you're a Jordan fan, or you're a Kobe fan, you know, whatever. And so you hate from that standpoint. But I think, like, you have to respect and admire, as long as he's been in the game. I mean, he was the star of the game of basketball before he even got to the NBA. His first game in the NBA, I mean, like, think about that. That was, you know, primetime TV, like Sports Center that day was like entirely about LeBron's first game. And so for someone so young to be in the limelight the way that he's been, and to conduct himself in a way of, like, you know, the utmost professionalism, and, you know, even just like the kind of the poise and the wisdom of you think about Vince, like from that, even when, you know, he was a rookie, the first thing he did was all of his boys, all his, you know, Akron boys, Rich Paul, Mav, like that whole crew.
Yeah.
He didn't just say, like, because a lot of guys do. Oh, I made it now. You're my boy. Come on, like here, I'm taking care of you. It was, you're gonna earn it. So Mav, you're gonna go work for Nike because I got to deal with Nike. And he's telling the people at Nike, hey, eventually this is my guy who I need running things. I need y'all getting him up to speed. Rich Paul, I don't even remember who his agent was initially, but he put Rich Paul right there, and so even just that to me is so incredible how he didn't just like his boys and his people and his family that were there with him, that helped him get to that point. That was his circle. A lot of people, it's like, I feel a sense of like, oh, I need to take care of my people because they were there for me. And just the way he did that, where it was like, I'm not just going to kind of like give you this handout, but I'm going to give you this opportunity. And now it's up to you, whatever you do with it. And I mean, look at what they're doing right now. Like the brand that they've built around LeBron James and what it reaches out into and how it's helping the next generation. I mean, to me, like personally, that's LeBron's greatest legacy. Like, I mean, he's amazing player, but all that stuff off the court is just, it's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Because honestly, like you touched on it, and me personally being behind the scenes and actually being a part of the NBA, you definitely see it even out more throughout the NBA now. Like you said, nobody was really doing that. Like guys are putting their guys on, or helping them out, but they weren't like putting them into the position to where now you're working in the same field as me and we're actually taking things over now. Like I kind of seen it more like, James, two of his friends, like one is, working in Adidas, Zoe, really good dude. And then he had his best friend that was working with him as a security guy. But they didn't give him anything. That was like, you got to come work for this. I'm going to network you and put you in the places that's going to happen. Like CP, he has his cousin overseeing, whatever it may be as far as what he got going on at events or for whatever it may be. I couldn't even tell you, but he had his one cousin doing this, another cousin doing this, his mom doing this, his dad doing this. And you keep it all in the family that way too. And CP was like telling me like, man, I got everything controlled financially. I got everybody's bank card. So if they spending this, spending that, like I'm knowing I'm shutting it down. So I think that a lot of people don't know that about LeBron, but what he did, like you said, what he started with that off the court, he definitely changed a lot of ways and a lot of things, the way people do things or things. So I definitely believe that too. And to kind of piggyback off what you said earlier about the hype when he first came in, I think the thing that kills me is, don't get me wrong, played against Victor Wembanyama, 7'5", great talent, generational talent for sure, but he does not have the hype that LeBron had. Like they were literally LeBron. They literally were telling like if LeBron didn't have this career, he was going to be a bust. Like if he wasn't who he is today, it didn't matter what else he did. He was going to be a bust. He was literally the chosen one. He was his games were on ESPN. Like you couldn't go to Instagram and watch highlights. Yeah, like you couldn't go to Twitter and go check out a highlight. This dude
you didn't have nationally televised high school games back then. Exactly. That was not a thing.
Like the only way to see this guy was to literally go to the game or bring these cameras to the game. And he was the Cleveland Cavs arena only sold out like twice, and it was Jordan and LeBron, and LeBron's a high school player. So I think when they talk about that on ESPN or segments, it kills me because it doesn't take anything away from Victor. Like they call him an alien, all the above, but I don't think nobody ever had the hype or responsibility or anything in that nature LeBron had. They handed the keys to a 17-year-old. He couldn't even sign his own NBA contract because his mom had to sign it for him. Like they handed this kid the keys to the NBA, and he laid down a blueprint and took off with it.
And call it what you want to call it. He went to a dysfunctional organization, by the way. Think about that team, and they were not good. And I mean, and normally that's what it is. When you're the number one pick, you're going to an organization like that. But, I'm not going to name any names, but I think when you look at it, like Vince, think about your experience, your rookie year, having guys like CP, James, PJ Tucker, having like real vets who've been through it, who, one, you're going to listen to because you're a fool if you don't, but two, they do it the right way. They're about the right things. And, even everything that you hit on, like someone like CP to me, he's going to be a Fortune 500 CEO or run the NBA or something like that one day.
Absolutely.
Because one of the things that people don't realize, and it's one of the things I'm trying to change now or help change, especially in the seat that I'm in, where I'm investing into companies and sports teams and things like that, is a lot of people look at it and they go, okay, well, this guy played 10 years professional basketball, either the NBA or overseas or a mix or whatever. And so now all of a sudden, if you want to like go in, quote unquote, like the real world or the business world and get a job, a lot of people very naively think, oh, well, you don't have any experience.
Right.
But if you think about the business of, especially the NBA, the business of basketball, even college basketball, the business of that, the people that you get to be around, the rooms that you get access to through basketball, because who you are as a player, and if you're smart about it, how you conduct yourself. And so LeBron's a great example, but your vet CP3, like I've sat at conferences where he was, tech conferences where he's up on the panel with like 10 people, like, I forget who all was up there with them. It was an event where like the guy who took over for Jeff Bezos at Amazon was on the panel, or one of the panels that day. And CP was like top 2 or 3 most impressive business mind, most astute, because you think about it, he's in these rooms with owners of NBA teams, with the people who run the league, with, brands, whatever, Nike, Adidas, whatever. And so, I think that's the other piece, is just what comes from that opportunity when you're surrounded with the right vets to see what else is out there. And so getting back to LeBron, the fact he was able to do all that stuff, and I don't think he really had anybody to show him the way there at Cleveland with all the weight, and you're in your hometown.
And I had
Derek in his hometown, for 3 years. And like the pressure that's on you is like people don't understand.
I mean, he had teammates that were hating on him. Like there were guys in their own interviews saying like, oh, we don't think he's going to come in and be that good, or, he might not like. Everybody's looking at this dude. They're like, he can play in the NBA. They were saying he could play in the NBA All-Star game as a 17-year-old. And you got his own teammates hating on him in interviews. And it was just kind of like,
because he's a threat to them. He's taking food off their table.
Exactly. Yep. But that's just the difference between, like you said, having guys like CP who are like, yeah, you're not going to come in here and take the food off my table. I'm going to compete, but I'm not going to leave you out to dry or leave you in the dark. Like there's not going to be any gray area. I'm going to, take you in and just kind of show you the ropes, and what you do with that is on you. So, I mean, that's definitely, that's true on so many levels that, like you said, that's helped change the way the game has been and the way it's going, and it's going to continue to keep growing. So definitely got to give him his flowers. And
well,
I mean, we got anything else? I know we've talked about a full-blown hour.
Yeah, we did it over an hour. I think we did good here. We did really, really good.
Vince didn't warn y'all I'm long-winded, so that's
all.
Thank you so much, Joshua, for coming on. Like, seriously, this has been great. And I always love to hear stories from anybody in college basketball or NBA. I love all these stories. So feel free to come back and share some more stories, because I love this stuff. So
yeah, I'd love to.
Oh yeah, Josh, you don't know, I've honestly met Misty through Cliff. So we got to get with Cliff. Yeah, we got to get with Cliff one day too. I think that'll be a cool segment to actually have as well. So
yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
that was
2017. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
That was a minute.
It was my last year, because Misty actually is a sports massage therapist, and that was the first time I ever met her. Was Cliff took me up there to work with her, and she dug some knots up out of my body that you caused. That was stuck in there. So.
That's around that time it was one of our moments where we were feuding. So in that moment, I was like, okay, Vince is the person that has Vince's ear right now is Cliff. So I need to find a way that I can build a relationship with Cliff, so that, I can continue to help Vince from where I sit. So I think, honestly, Vince, I think that's one of the things that probably brought us together even closer was, once Cliff and I built a relationship,
Yeah, it definitely did. It made it easier to trust. I definitely was sneaking away from Josh for some workouts. He would get mad at me. I'd be downstairs we had an underwater treadmill. I'd be downstairs on the underwater treadmill getting a workout in because I'm like, man, I'm dead tired. I probably put like 34, 33 minutes, and Josh is like, you gotta come upstairs and lift. I'm like, Josh, not today, man. Honestly, understanding it all, and once we kind of sat down and kind of got through to it, and he explained it, and I bought in, like you said, and Cliff kind of integrated. And sometimes it takes that. Like, people aren't willing to work to that part of a relationship where it's like, you might not have the best relationship, but somebody who he does have the best relationship with, you could kind of take to them, and it helps understand more. Because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the easiest person to open up to. I'm sociable and likable, but I wasn't the easiest to just like let you in. So it definitely took a little third party. Like, I'm gonna be respectable, I'm gonna be professional and do what I got to do, but it's not every time that like I let you in just easy so we can have this close relationship. Like, it just doesn't work like that for me. So that was definitely our turning point in our relationship for sure. But we've been close ever since. Like you said, that's like my brother, man. So for those of you who are still listening to this podcast, like, y'all need to make sure y'all follow Josh on social media, his Twitter, Instagram, and he's always posting business-like ideas, business-minded people, inspirational quotes, man. The guys, he does everything, man. He inspires me every day without even knowing it, just because I can go to his social media and know I'm either going to learn something or have something that motivates me for the day. So,
yep. Again, that is Joshua Bonatol. Everybody, are we good?
Good. I'm good. Right. Absolutely.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming back for another episode of Sports and Ish with Misty V and Vince Edwards. We will be back again in just a few short days. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We are on every single podcast platform, including Apple and Spotify. Leave comments, rate, review us. We love that stuff. We are also on YouTube at Sports and Ish. Find us on Twitter as well. Again, thank you so much to our guest today, Joshua Bonatol. You've been amazing. Everybody have a great day. Thanks.